Oh, hey, my favorite character is being slammed online. I bet that's gonna stop soon. I bet somebody's gonna put out a guide, some content creator out there is gonna write something about how to play this character. Some posts on untapped.gg or something. Surely this is gonna stop soon, right? Right? I guess I'm talking about the Regent. Alright, disclaimers first. I am not saying that I am the best Regent player around or anything. I enjoy a 50% win rate just about on Ascension 10. I think that's pretty good. That's definitely better than some of you are claiming. Uh, I don't think it's particularly awesome or anything. I guess I just played the game a bunch. I mean, a lot. I played over 100 hours of this game in the first 10 days after release, which maybe is a little high. I might have a bit of a problem. I feel like I'm living in a completely separate planet right now. I hear people talk about this character all the time, and what they say just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, they keep buffing Perry. They keep buffing Perry. I don't understand. What's wrong with Perry? Am I the only one that picks that card? I just want to talk to you for probably way too long about this character and try and make you see the character the way I do because I have a lot of fun playing it. I said I enjoy a 50% win rate, and I think the key word there is enjoy. I'm having fun. I'm experimenting, I'm trying new stuff, I'm having some success. I just want you to see the character the way I do. I just want you to have fun the way I do. The first thing that I need to do is to correct a very common misconception that I've seen from a lot of people. The Regent does not have a stars deck. The Regent does not have decks that don't play stars cards. The Regent has decks that all have a stars economy. It's built into your starter deck. You have Venerate and you have Falling Star, you gain stars, you spend stars. It's there from the get go. You are not avoiding this. This is not a mechanic that you invest into. Well, you can have a deck that has a really large stars economy that produces a lot of stars and spends a lot of stars. You can have a deck that has a very small stars economy. But at the basic level, you are going to have a stars economy in every deck. You have to handle your stars income and your stars expenses, and you have to think about them, and you have to build a deck where those things work well together. Because Falling Star is really powerful. It's a really strong card. It's a zero energy cost attack that makes the enemy both weak and vulnerable. That's amazing. That's basically uppercut. It's really good. So you want to be playing Falling Star at the very, very least. So you need the stars economy. You are not going to have any deck, or well, almost any deck, that has no stars in them. One thing I can tell you is I can give you a heuristic that I like. Like every heuristic, this is wrong, this is false. I already break it in at least two major cases that I can think of, but this is something that, if you're struggling with a character, is probably going to give you a better direction. And the heuristic is that if you are spending stars on attacks, then you want to be spending energy on block. And if you are spending stars on block, then you want to be spending energy on attacks. And you should probably commit to one or the other. It is fairly difficult to do both. To have cards that cost stars that are both attacks and blocks in the same deck. They don't fit as well. You can do that for sure. It's probably correct to do that in some cases, but I think that as a baseline, you should choose one or the other. And also, I recommend the second. I like spending stars on block on this character much, much more than I like spending stars on attacks. I think the star-based attacks are kind of a trap. Part of that is that Glitter Stream kinda sucks. I'm sure you've heard some people swear by this card, say that it's very good, one of the best cards on the character. I take that to mean that they've figured out half of this heuristic, but not the good half. They are spending energy on block, so they're picking the big block card, and then they're spending their stars on attacks like Astral Pulse, which I will occasionally put in my deck and be very sad about. I think Astral Pulse is very bad. I think Glitter Stream is also fairly bad. And I think the two of them pair well together. And if you pick one, you should probably pick the other. I think those two go well together the way that Cloak of Stars goes well with Spoils of Battle. So you want to turn stars into block. There's two really good uncommons on this character, Reflect and Particle Wall. These are some of my favorite cards on this character. I think they're both incredibly strong. They both want a lot of stars, so if you put stuff like Astral Pulse in your deck, you're not going to be able to play Reflect and Particle Wall when you draw them, and that's really bad. So I don't want to spend my stars on attack because I want to save my stars for blocking with these cards. The rares, Dying Star and Neutron Ages, fine cards, pretty good. I like them. They kind of do the same thing. I like the uncommons more. The common that does this is Cloak of Stars, and I picked that card fairly highly because it's kind of irreplaceable. There's uncommons that do it better. If I already have like 2 Particle Walls and Reflect, I'm not interested in Cloak of Stars. But at common, this is basically the only card that does this. Special mention to Know Thy Place, which is also a 0-cost block card of sorts, because weak is sort of block. It also vulnerables. This is a fairly solid role player in most decks that are interested in turning energy into damage. It doesn't work as well in decks that want to turn stars into damage, I don't think. 0-cost block cards are good on this character. So I like Know Thy Place. I will pick 1 or even 2 in most of my decks. It's kind of a redundancy for Falling Star, right? So we want to turn stars into block. How are we getting these stars? I think that Shining Strike is a very, very good card that gives you a bunch of stars. It enables an entire style of deck where you're just leveraging the stars on Shining Strike to do a bunch of things. Pairs really well with Black Hole, pairs really well with star-based defense because you're hitting them for 1 attack every turn, and then if you block with the stars, you can do other interesting things. You can draw more cards, you can play Shining Strike again, you can build up more stars in order to do other stuff. It synergizes well with the whole block package that I just described. Shining Strike is very strong. It can be a little bit of a trap later on, in that you don't necessarily want to play a strike, a deal 8 damage strike. It might not be the best card in your deck anymore, but by that point you probably built a deck that works without the Shining Strike, because you don't always draw this on turn 1, so you should still have a deck that functions without it. And you're probably turning into a sort of a star spam Black Hole sort of type of deck that is probably going to win the run. I like Shining Strike. I think Shining Strike is very strong. The actual way I turn energy into stars most of the time is glow and convergence. Both of these are in a lot of ways similar. Uh, they turn one energy into one and upgrades to 2 stars, and glow gives you card draw. The beta version is weaker. The base game version that you see here, the draw 2 cards version, this one is the best common on the character, hands down, especially since alignment is still not nerfed. So, well, we'll get to that. But even the version on the beta branch, which is where I play now, that one's still fine. It's a good way to generate stars. And convergence does a lot of similar things. It pays for itself. One thing you will notice if you start playing with convergence, which I think this is a really good card, by the way. You should pick it. You should pick it. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this, but this is a good card and you should pick it. It kind of pays for itself, and you will notice that a lot of the times you don't really need to play a card right now. You can hold it for a turn and then play it later. Convergence will give you the energy back. So you can just kind of freely sneak in a couple stars here and there, just hold the attack that you were going to play for one more turn and then play it on the next turn. But it's not just that. I'm gonna talk more about convergence later because it does so many things. It is one of the easiest ways to get some stars in your deck. Glow and convergence kind of pair well together. They kind of do similar things, and they are going to be the backbones of your stars economy. Gatherlight and Solar Strike I do not like. I will pick a Solar Strike in Act 1 to fight some elites. It's an attack common. It gives me some stars. It's passable. I don't like it. Gatherlight, I actively try to avoid. One of the main reasons I don't like spending energy to attack on this character is that Gatherlight and Glitterstream kinda suck. They're not very good. They're not. Hidden Cache, kind of mid. I don't particularly like having it in my deck, but I will pick it to have more stars if I need more stars for my stars economy. This card gives you stars. It does some neat stuff with Radiate. We'll talk about that more later. But mostly this card just gives you some stars, and there's better ways to get stars. Pick more glows, pick more convergence. Genesis is okay sometimes. It's whatever. So back to convergence. Convergence is part of what I call the glue cards on this character. You'll notice as we go along that I'm going to be describing specific turns that I want to have. I'm going to be talking about combining various cards together. This is a very combo-oriented character, but it is a combo-oriented character in a very different way from old Silent. We used to have Silent decks that were just like, oh, I'm gonna put together Burst and Catalyst and everything's gonna die. I'm gonna hold a finisher and have a big finisher turn where finisher deals like 200 damage and the enemy is gonna die. I'm gonna line it up with Pen Nib, I'm gonna Terror, I'm gonna Blade Dance. That's my big turn and everything is gonna die. Regent doesn't feel that way. Regent is more like I'm setting up 2 or 3 combo turns in order to win the fight. My quote-unquote combo turn is just a turn where I have really high output. I deal 60 damage and block for 30, and that's really good. And the rest of my turns, I just kind of set up. I block a little. I try to set up my stuff so that I can have the high output turn, and then that doesn't win the fight, so I'm gonna do that again, and at some point I win the fight. And the cards that allow me to set up these big turns are Convergence, Cosmic Indifference, Photon Cat, and in a lesser way, Glimmer. There's also Foregone Conclusions, but that's It's kind of awkward to use. It's kind of weak. I have had some success with it, especially in like the skill spam deck. It can do some interesting things, but mostly it's convergence, cosmic indifference, and photon cut. Photon cut is rock solid, good attack, good upgrade, good even unupgraded. You just play Photon Cut, you deal 10 damage, you draw a card, you take your Fallen Star, you put it in your next hand, because on your next turn you know that you're gonna draw your sword and you're gonna pair it with Fallen Star and it's gonna deal 60 damage, and that's gonna be great. So Photon Cut, good solid common attack card. I like having it in my deck. Cosmic Indifference, huge card on this character. Really important card. I like having it. I like having two of it because there's a lot of fights where I like looping them. There's a bunch of situations where I don't have a card to Cosmic yet. So I'm gonna Cosmic my own Cosmic in order to have a Cosmic Indifference on the next turn, so that I can Cosmic back the card that I'm actually interested in that is going to win me the fight. Cosmic is so good. I like it. I like upgrading it. This is one of those upgrades that looks unimpressive. It's just 3 block, right? It's just, I'm basically upgrading defend, but I play this card so often in my turns that this adds up to be a significant boost to my defenses. Cosmic, pick Cosmic, upgrade Cosmic, use it, set up your turns to do really cool stuff. And Convergence does the same exact thing, except it doesn't really cost energy because you're paying yourself back in the future, and it gives you stars. Convergence is amazing. It sets up these big turns while boosting your stars economy, and it does so much. One thing above all, Convergence lets you keep Particle Wall. Convergence and Particle Wall will work so well together. Side note, I Am Invincible turns Cosmic into a late game block engine. Good card. Cosmic is a really good card. It just, sometimes it blocks for a ton late game for basically no cost. Just really good synergy. Alright, time to talk about parry. This is kind of a meme at this point for me. I have been yelling about parry for so long. I have the most controversial parry take you'll ever see. Are you ready for the most controversial of parry takes? I think parry is fine. I think it's alright. I think it does what it needs to be doing. I don't think it needs huge buffs. I think it's an alright Act 1 card. And I don't get why people are so hell-bent on hating parry. It didn't need the buff. I've come around to the first buff, the one that goes to 8, because parry used to feel like kind of a mandatory upgrade, and the design of the game is such that you don't get as many upgrades, and spending a whole campfire on parry feels kinda bad. 9 is a lot more than 6. 6 is borderline. I don't particularly care for parry at 6, but 9 is really nice in Act 1, and 8 unupgraded feels like a strong, solid breakpoint. I don't think it needs to go to 10. I definitely don't think it needs to go above 10. Stop buffing parry. Parry is fine. And the reason parry is fine, main reason I'm making this video really, is that people are using Forge so wrong. The Forge mechanic works this way. If you play, say, Spoils of Battle, Forge 10, it is going to deal 10 damage every time you play Sovereign Blade. If you play parry, it is going to block for 8 every time you play Sovereign Blade. The entire mechanic is trying to get you to play Sovereign Blade multiple times. people keep holding the blade. Just because it has retain, it doesn't mean you should hold it forever. In fact, you should be playing it a lot more. And I already know what you're trying to type. No, it does not need to cost 1. It does not need to cost 1. You don't need to be upgrading it in order to play it more easily. The kit of this character is chock full of ways to play this card despite it costing 2. In fact, if you think about it a certain way, you describing how awkward and difficult it is to play Sovereign Blade as a 2-cost attack is you stating the problem. Now you gotta solve it. It is awkward to play a 2-cost attack. It's not that awkward, by the way. Snakebite is a 2-cost retain attack and it's really good. Cinder is a 2-cost attack that you play against Act 1 elites all the time. Bash is fine. You play 2-cost attacks in this game. You take some damage when you do that, and that's alright. You just play the 2-cost attacks. If they deal a lot of damage, and this deals a lot of damage. A lot of people think about Spoils of Battle, and they go, oh, so I spend 1 energy on this, and then 2 energy on Blade, and this card has dealt a total of 20 damage, so 20 divided by 3, this is kind of like a strike. It's an awkward strike, it's really bad. This is not the way to think about this. The way I think about this is Spoils of Battle. If I play the blade 3 times during a fight, is going to deal 30 and probably more because of vulnerable damage to an enemy for 1 energy. I spend 1 energy on Spoils of Battle, and then this is going to deal 30 damage to the elite. And the reason I think this is a better way to think about this is that I am not spending 2 energy on Sovereign Blade instead of some theoretical other thing that I could be doing. I am spending 2 energy on Sovereign Blade instead of playing Strike. Sovereign Blade is not that different from playing 2 strikes. And do me a favor, next time you fight an Act 1 elite, count how many times you play Strike in that fight. Or any Act 1 fight, for that matter. Just count how many times you play Strike. And Strike is a bad card, sure, but I will play a bunch of Strikes if it means that I get to deal 30 damage for 1 energy with Spoils of Battle. This is Bludgeon, but for 1. It deals so much damage. And I'm not just saying that, by the way. I definitely have experienced this card absolutely demolishing Act 1 elites. I average less than 10 damage for every Overgrowth elite in the game when I play Forge cards. They just crush the fights. A little more than that in the Underdogs. The Underdogs wants you to be more defensive. Forge cards are aggressive. You're gonna play a little bit like Ironclad. You're gonna be playing 2-cost attacks. You're gonna be taking some hits, but you're gonna be dealing so much damage in return that you just kind of take less damage overall as a result. Doesn't work as well in the Underdogs, especially with the Skulking Colony. Forge cards, really good at fighting Act 1 elites. Really good at fighting Act 1 bosses too. You kinda need a plan for Phantom, but your plan can just be Wrought in War. Wrought in War kills Phantom. Spoils of Battle and Refined Blade don't necessarily kill Phantom on their own. You need something else. You need to take care of the intangible before you hit it with a big sword several times. So not the best there. But the other 5 bosses, absolutely crushed by Forge. Absolutely easily crushed by Forge. You should try it. It's really good in Act 1. And it's not just really good, it doesn't take a lot of deck space. Spoils of Battle Wrought in War and Refined Blade, if I have two of these cards, I've already fully saturated my energy output on offense, because Blade costs 2 energy. It's a lot of energy. So I don't really need other attack combos. I'm going to play Blade. I'm gonna try to play Blade once before I shuffle, and then again later on I'm going to line up Blade, because it has Retain, with Fallen Star, so that the enemy is weak and vulnerable, so I get less damage in return on the turn where I'm spending a lot of energy on attack, and so that I deal 50% extra damage. And I'm gonna play the Blade once, twice, 3 times per fight, per elite fight. On the 3rd time, usually it dies, either 2nd or 3rd time, depending on what else is going on in my deck. And in order to play it 3 times, I usually play it once before the shuffle, and then I try to line it up with either a Cosmic or a Summon Force to play it multiple times on the 2nd time through. And that is how I get to kill elites very easily. So this is where Forge is really strong. Early game. Forge as in the Forge Commons. These 3 Forge Commons. They're very strong in the early game. They get to go through the Overgrowth really easily. You're gonna cruise through and kill everything, and it's gonna be great. And there's a bunch of ways to take less damage while doing this. By the way, resting, fairly strong. You can just play Blade a bunch and then rest and get your health back, and that works. But there's also a bunch of other ways to play the Blade. You can refine Blade to get extra energy to be able to play the Blade next turn. You can put Orbit in your deck, that gives you a 4th energy. That's basically like upgrading Blade to cost 1. It even goes kind of crazy later on in the game. Orbit is a good card when you're spending energy on not block, on card draw, on offense, on powers and stuff like that. Orbit gets kind of crazy. So you have this whole situation where you're just trying to play the Blade multiple times, and this is where parry works, because if I play the Blade 3 times against Berdonis and parry is blocking for 9 each time, parry is going to block for 18 in that fight. I'm not counting the last one because Bird's dead. But it blocks for 18 for 1 energy. That's a good block card. Parry is just a block card. It's a good, solid block card for Act 1. It even doesn't really weigh your deck down all that much later on. It gets way worse in Act 2 and Act 3 because you're not playing Blade as much. We'll get to that. But it's fine in Act 1. It's a fine card. It doesn't need a crazy number on it. It's not a scaling card. I'm not picking this expecting it to block for 40 in the Queen fight. That's not what this card is doing. This card is just helping you play Blade more. This is both a payoff for playing Blade more and an enabler for getting to play the Blade more. Because you want to play the Blade more, because if you play the Blade more, these Forge cards are going to deal so much more damage. Refine Blade, hitting for 6 because you hold the Blade until it's forged, until it can end the fight, is just a very bad flying knee. I don't like putting flying knee in my deck. I like playing Refine Blade because it deals not just 6, it deals baseline 9 because I'm hitting the enemy when it's vulnerable, times the amount of times I play the Blade, so probably 27 damage in a fight. That's a lot of damage for a common attack card that doesn't even cost energy. This is the way to make Forge work well, okay? You want to be playing the Blade a lot. And then it sort of stopped working. You reach Act 2, and apart from the cockroaches, which are so bad for the Blade decks, it's a legitimate problem. You want a solution for the cockroaches hallway fight because you're going to die. But besides that, in general, Blade just doesn't scale all that well. You start struggling, you start not dealing enough damage, you start taking way too much damage if you spend all that energy on attacks. And this is where I also think people kind of have the wrong expectations, because when exactly is the last time that your common attack card has performed well in Act 2 and 3? Like, are you excited to be playing Dagger Spray against the Queen because it's an AoE fight? Deals 16 damage for 1 energy. Fantastic. No, that's not how this game works. Your common attack cards, you pick them, you put them in your deck, they kill early enemies, and then you move on to other stuff. And the other stuff can still be Blade, but in a much different way. There are ways to make a deck that plays the Blade and has a late game that is about Sovereign Blade, but it's kind of awkward. It's not where Blade shines, it's not where these Forge cards are at their best. A lot of people say that Bulwark is the best Forge card, and I just don't agree. I think Bulwark's fine, it's pretty strong, it's Dash. I don't especially love Dash. It's a way to scale Blade in Act 2 and 3 while blocking, so you get to scale Blade up a bunch, and then you get to finish with a big Blade. That becomes the way you play Blade later on. You don't play it as aggressively, you don't play it as often, so parry gets worse. Not a late game card, it's an Act 1 card. But Conqueror gets a lot better. You build up the Blade and then you kill people with the Blade, and Conqueror just doubles the damage. That's a lot. Conqueror is a fairly good Forge card for the later on in the run. Furnace is good. I like to think of this as kind of in between Infinite Blades and Noxious Fumes as far as output goes, like damage output goes. It's more than for a turn, even without the upgrade. Upgrades to 6, that's good, but even without the upgrade, this is more than for each turn, because you are pairing the Blade with at least Vulnerable, but probably also Conqueror, probably also some other stuff. So this is going to deal more than 4 damage per turn. But it's a nice power, nice scaling power. It's scaling uncommon. It's not going to win the run for you, but it is going to scale enough to beat the Act 2 boss, for example. The Smith, this is one of my exceptions on not spending stars on offense. The Smith is quite good. Forge 30 and upgrades to 40, that's a large number. That's a really large number. You get a copy of the Smith, suddenly your sword does scale enough for late game. You have a sword that hits for 50, 75 when the enemy is vulnerable. You get to play it 3-4 times, that almost kills an Act 3 boss. This is from playing the Smith once, and you can play the Smith multiple times. So, good card. The Smith is good card. You need stars for it, so you're going to pick up a bunch of glow and convergence in order to put together this deck. But yeah, this is one of the ways to make Forge work later on in the game. Heirloom Hammer and Sword Sage are theoretically ways to scale Blade for the late game. I think both of them are kind of terrible. Sword Sage got buffed, thank God. I think it's probably going to be fairly strong now. We really needed this. Forge had a really strong early game and a fairly weak late game, and I think the change to Sword Sage is going to fix that significantly. If you get Sword Sage, then late game Sword is going to be so much better. And finally, Seeking Edge. This is the best Forge card, bar none. It's so good. Every difficult fight for this deck is an AoE fight, basically. You really, really want this when you're going for forged cards. You are really happy to see it as your boss reward. It's going to crush a bunch of fight. It's so good. It is so good. You should pick this very highly. Seeking Edge is the best forge card, the best forge rare. Better than the Smith. So good. All right, this is one possible way to build your deck, but as we said, scaling Blade kind of hard. You want to be picking the forge cards, the forge commons early on, but then you end up in a situation at the end of the act where maybe you get offered a different rare, maybe you don't really want to keep playing the Blade because it kind of sucks now. You need something else to do, and this is the other part of my heuristic, my stars heuristic that I really like. If you build your deck to be blocking with stars, you get to pick the high cost rares. One among them all, Void Form. Cloak of Stars is really, really good at enabling Void Form. You put Cloak of Stars in your deck, you're going to take less damage putting Void Form into play. Not just that, but you're going to put a bunch of card draw in your deck because you have Void Form. There's cards like Guiding Star and Prophesize, which I don't like unless I have a Void Form or several orbits in my deck so that I can just go off with card draw. But once you have a Void Form, once you are good at putting Void Form into play, cards like Guiding Star and Prophesize are kind of good, and Cloak of Stars works really well with these. Void Form doesn't make every card free to play, only the first two, right? So you play Prophesize for free, you draw a bunch of cards, you play one more card for free, and then you still have to spend your energy. And if you have a bunch of Cloak of Stars, that's free block. Well, free, quote unquote free, you still have to pay stars for it, but you get it. So having a deck that's set up to play Forge in Act 1 transition really easily into Void Form late game or multiple orbits late game. That sort of high cost, high energy expenses, draw a bunch of cards, play a bunch of cards deck. Kind of a spammy deck. It's a good late game. It's not my favorite late game, but it's a solid strategy, and it's a great way to turn a strong early start with Forge cards into a late game deck that doesn't suck. Just drop the Forge part. You don't need to keep doing the same thing for the whole run. If you don't find the good scaling Forge cards, just find scaling somewhere else. Monarch's Gaze is the other 3-cost power that I really, really like. You don't always get offered Void Form, but you can pick Monarch's Gaze instead of Void Form, and this is still going to probably win you the game. It's really good. This is, even if you don't pair it with multi-attacks, even if you just hit people with 1-cost attacks, like hit people with Shining Strike over and over, Monarch's Gaze quite good. It helps a lot in some of the most difficult fights. So this is a good power to put into play. It costs a lot, so if you block with Cloak of Stars and Particle Wall and so on, you get to play this without dying, and then this is a really strong effect. It also kind of pushes you into the Vigor deck, which is perhaps the strongest thing to do on this character, but is very awkward to get into. Honorable mention, Knockout Blow. I have a theory that Knockout Blow may be pickable if you have a bunch of Cloak of Stars in your deck, but I haven't tested it yet and it sounds awful. Somebody else let me know if it's good. So the Radiate combo deck. There's 3 parts to this combo. You want Royal Gamble, upgraded so it retains, so you can play it on the right turn. You want Radiate, that hits 1 time for every star you gain. So with Royal Gamble, that's 9 times. And you want Terraforming or some other effect that increases the damage that Radiate deals. If you put these 3 things together, things will die. This is a fairly well-known strategy on this character. It's really hard to put together, but when it works really well. The commons that kind of go into this direction are Celestial Might and Pater. These pair very well together, and Celestial Might starts off as a pretty strong Act 1 card, which then falls off a cliff. You don't want this in your deck anymore. You probably don't want to play it ever again when you get your Radiate stuff going, because it consumes your Vigor, and you don't want to hit only 3 times or 4 times with the new patch. It's not enough. But if you have a Celestial Might, which you can totally pick on floor 1, you can put a bunch of Vigor cards or other similar cards in your deck to synergize with Celestial Might, and then you put a Radiate in your deck, and then you drop Celestial Might forever. Radiate is one option, Stardust is the other option. I think Stardust is a little weaker than Radiate, but it's easier to set up. It doesn't need Gamble as much. This is where I like Genesis, for example. You put in Genesis Plus, and then Stardust starts accumulating damage. You play Terraforming, you play Pater, you get enough Vigor, and then you blow everything up with Stardust. That's a solid plan for killing bosses and other stuff. Terraforming is not the only way to get Vigor. You can get stuff that's not straight up Vigor. Beat into Shape is the most oddball of payoffs for going for a Radiate, because you hit them 9 times with Radiate and then Beat into Shape, Forge 50, and then you have to hit them with a sword. It's kind of a mess. This card is kind of a meme, I think. Resonance is also absolutely atrocious. It's really bad. But this is basically a very bad Inflame. People get stuck on the all enemies lose 1 strength part, which seems like the most interesting part of the card. This card is mostly just Inflame. Inflame is good on this character, but spending 3 stars for an Inflame is maybe not the best. The best way to get strength or Vigor is from relics. Stuff like Akabeko, stuff like Girya, Vajra, the mini Regent, that's a Regent-specific relic that gets you strength when you spend stars for the first time each turn. That stuff very quickly scales up Radiate's damage. My favorite one is Miniature Cannon. You upgrade Radiate, and then Miniature Cannon is +3 damage on every Radiate hit. That's a lot of damage. So you can substitute the Terraforming with a few relics, and I think that is where the deck truly excels. If you get those relics, keep an eye out. You can go into this deck more easily. You still kind of sort of need the Royal Gamble, though. Royal Gamble is fine, by the way. I didn't mention it before when I talked about stars, but it's a good stars generating card, even if you're not in this deck. I just wanted to go in order a bit. I'm trying not to repeat myself too much. So, Royal Gamble, very important for this deck. Kind of fine to pick it up, even if you're not in this deck, so good card. There's also Lunar Blast. For the longest time, I thought that Lunar Blast, the sort of Lunar Blast monologue deck that I was building, was kind of like a Vigor deck. I don't think so anymore. I think this is a distinct synergy space for the character. It's the skill spam deck. You want Lunar Blasts, you want Make It So, you want Monologue, you want Pale Blue Dot. This is where these cards are the most effective. They can scale up very quickly, especially if you have some ninja relics like Shuriken or Kunai or stuff like that. You get a particle wall, you start spamming particle wall, you get these combo finishes where you play particle wall 7 times and then play lunar blast, you keep playing make it so in the meantime. You have some late game synergies like music box. Make it so with music box is so good, like game breakingly powerful. You have guards on top of particle wall. Those are also low cost skills. Monologue, playing monologue, recurring monologue. Pale blue dot is at its best in this deck. It's also good with void form, but very very good in this deck. You just keep spamming these cards and putting together this kind of it's kind of a multi-hit synergy space. It benefits from a lot of the same similar things, but it's not quite the same. This does not play out like the bigger combo deck. This deck is the one that likes black hole the most as well. By the way, zero cost skills like Cloak of Stars, great in this deck. Reflect, great in this deck. Black hole, another way to deal enough damage. If you have one black hole, that's not enough, but if you have 2 black holes, especially upgraded, 8 damage every time you get a star, it's not that hard to trigger that 4 or 5 times each turn, and that's enough damage for late game. So you can go in that direction as well. And I think this is kind of a sort of synergy space. Black hole also goes in a couple different decks. We'll talk more about later on, but this is sort of a good synergy space for late game that is a little harder to see. So keep an eye out for this one. Guards is also obviously good when you want to have some colorless synergies. I think colorless synergies are kind of mid, but they are real. Guards, Begun, and Charge are the backbones of the strategy, but the cards that I really like the enablers that I really like, are Manifest Authority and Quasar. And I really like upgrading these. If you get a random colorless card, that's often not great, but a random upgraded colorless card, that's so much better. And a large part of that is a lot of colorless cards upgrade from costing 1 to costing 0. If I get an automation off of Manifest Authority, not gonna play it. It's probably gonna be a curse in my deck. If I get an automation plus from Manifest Authority plus, that goes straight into play. It's gonna give me some energy this game. It's fine. It's a fine effect. I like having it. So a lot of cards go like that. A lot of cards improve significantly with the upgrade. So you should make it a point to upgrade Manifest Authority and Quasar. Spectrum Shift, unfortunately, doesn't upgrade the same way. I don't know why. This card could probably cost 1 unupgraded and upgrade to upgraded colorless cards, and it would be so much better. Spectrum Shift is just not very good. Anyway, the payoffs for colorless cards are not super good. And there's a bunch of other cards that kind of seem to point in this direction that are also not super good. Crash Landing, not great. Bundle of Joy, bit of a meme. It feels fine at 1 cost now. I transformed into it and it was okay. But I still don't want it in my deck. And Collision Course, I think this is a major problem for this strategy. Collision Course is kind of bad. I don't want this card in my deck, even in Act 1. And that means I don't really go into this deck as easily. Pillar of Creation is fine. I don't particularly care for it. It's just not enough of a payoff for me to go into this deck. The actual payoff for this deck is Arsenal. Specifically, the new Arsenal. Because the old Arsenal was a really good card. I liked it a lot. The best way to play The old arsenal was to get the arsenal at the Act 1 boss, pass to every shop in Act 2, and hunt for good colorless cards to buy. You don't want to produce the colorless cards, you want to have like Flesh of Steel and 2 Finesse in your deck. That's going to scale your strength incredibly fast, and that is just the best way to play with Arsenal. The new Arsenal doesn't allow that, probably for the best. It's gonna be a much worse card because of that. The other payoff is Supermassive. I like Supermassive. It scales quite quickly, but I think Supermassive is yet another Act 1 card. It is probably good enough to play late game, to deal damage late game if you have a bunch of random card generation in your deck, but I don't particularly care for that strategy as a whole. Supermassive, though, goes kind of in the same pile as Kingly Kick and Kingly Punch for me. There's a few attacks, well, there's these 3 attacks that are enough damage to kill the Act 1 boss. If you put a bunch of Begone, Charge, and other similar stuff in your deck, it's gonna quickly churn over the whole deck over and over, and then you're gonna play these cards a bunch, and you're gonna draw them, and you're gonna scale them. I think Kingly Kick is the best one. I think Supermassive is the second best one, and I think Kingly Punch is the worst one. This is not my favorite strategy, but it's legitimately a way to win Act 1. And then you just kind of move on. You can move into colorless synergies. That's a thing you can do. It's not the best, but it's there. Star-based attacks. The good ones are Devastate and Comet. Gamma Blast I'm very suspicious of. I haven't played with it enough, but I'm not super high on. Astral Pulse and 7 Stars I actively avoid. I do not like these cards. I don't want them in my deck. This is the deck where you're spending stars on offense. So you want to be spending energy on defense. You want to be picking Glitterstream. You want to be picking Patter. You probably want to be picking Gatherlight. Oh. And this is the best place for Child of Stars. Black Hole, not as necessary here. You already have the offense sorted. You probably want a lot of star synergies, a lot of star generation, and you probably want to put Particle Wall in this deck anyway, and then you're gonna have to be really careful with how you manage your stars, and then you're gonna probably die at some point because you don't have the stars for everything. I don't like this deck. I don't like doing this. I think Devastate is good enough for Act 1. This is another one of those cards where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna pick a Devastate, I'm gonna pick a Hidden Cache, I'm gonna set up the turn where I hit for 60, that's gonna kill an elite, and then I'm just gonna drop Devastate forever from Act 2 onwards. And I don't like doing this. Devastate and Comet are good enough that I will do it. I think it's correct, but this is not the way I want to be playing this character. Another exception to my heuristic, Crescent Spear is a good card. It's very easy to scale this up to deal 30 to 40 damage. That's going to carry you through Act 1 and most of Act 2. That's it. That's Crescent Spear. It's fine. I like it. I especially like it when I get 2 of these from a Silver Crucible start. It doesn't happen all that often, but it's good. And some miscellaneous cards. Crash Under, good card. It solves a bunch of difficult fights. This is the card that I want to put in my Forge deck to handle the cockroaches. Tyranny, great card. Love it. Very strong. Especially strong with Bombardment. If you haven't put that together yet, that's really fun. Hegemony, I'm sure there's some way to use this card. I don't much care for it. Royalties, avoid this. It's bad. Big Bang, decisions, and alignment. These three cards go in basically every deck. They're good. Pick them. And Heavenly Drill, which is also a card. Alright, I'm gonna leave you on Heavenly Drill, because what better way to end this than to say that you don't need to believe that you can love the Regent. You don't need to believe that I am right about everything or anything. You just need to believe in the version of yourself that believes in me enough to enjoy this character. Because if you don't, Mega Crit is going to buff Perry again, and it's getting ridiculous. This is George's fault. I know it's George's fault. He said it was fine for Perry to be 15, and Casey and Anthony have taken that as a challenge. I swear to God, I'm gonna get him for that. This is all his fault.